The people who swore banks would never touch Ripple just lost that argument on Wells Fargo's own website. If you hold 500 XRP, the page matters more than a chart on your phone. It is live, public, and I read every line of it today. Read it with me. Instructions are a commitment. An advert can vanish on a quiet Friday. Instructions have an owner and a support desk behind them. This is your XRP news desk today. Nobody there is claiming a partnership. And nobody has to because wiring outlives announcements. That plain page is what I'm watching every day. A bank writes this down only when a corporate customer keeps asking, so how far does this route reach? Wells Fargo is not the story. It's one line on a list, and I want to be exact. Those banks are not all running XRP. The wiring is the hard part, and Ripple owns it. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want more XRP news. Picture a switchboard between one company's cash and each bank it can already reach. That is the asset, and contracts like that take years. So somebody paid for it, and the price is on Ripple's own press page. Trapped capital is a polite phase for cash a business owns and cannot reach until Monday. Buying beats building when the asset is relationships, because you cannot write code that makes a bank trust you. So that check did not buy technology. It bought a customer's list, and Wells Fargo's site is what that list looks like from the outside. Software gets swapped out in a quarter. A route into a bank's own system takes years to rip out. Before you call this software, hear how Brad Garlinghouse framed the strategy. On a New York stage,
that made us unpopular in crypto. Early on, Ripple said, banks are our customers. If we want these technologies to have the biggest impact on the largest number of people, banks are where the touch point for people in their financial services relationships. I think the earliest days of crypto, and I will say in advance, I think this has changed, evolved a little bit, but not entirely. The earliest days of crypto was a very anti-bank, anti-government, let's build a parallel universe. Ripple always took the point of view that we're going to be a bridge between what we would now call TradFi or traditional finance and DeFi, decentralized finance. We've always been trying to build bridges between those two because we think we can bring these technologies to traditional finance in a way that they then can scale and provide cheaper, better, stronger, faster services to their customers. So, yeah, I mean, like, today banks are our customers. We have lots of financial institutions around the world, payment providers, everybody from HSBC and SocGen all the way down to, smaller players you've never heard of doing payment processing between the Philippines and Singapore. We do have a conditional OCC charter, which is really for almost belt and suspenders regulatory oversight for our stablecoin business. We launched a stablecoin business 13 months ago. It stands at about number 5 of the largest stablecoins now, which we're in just over a year, we're very proud of. But we went kind of the extra step of having regulatory oversight both through the New York Department of Financial Services, the trust license. Then we also went and applied for an OCC charter, which we now have conditional approval on.
The touch point is his phrase for the counter where a normal human being meets his money. That posture costs Ripple years of ridicule because refusing to fight an industry looks like surrendering until that industry hands you a page of its own manual. Your 500 XRP is pointed at that counter, not a trading screen, and counters are where volume lives. Before you guess who decides this, inside a business, listen to who he names.
Because look, if you're on the board of a company or the CEO of a company, you're asking your CFO or treasurer, hey, are we using stablecoins or could we use stablecoins and how would that help? And there's a bunch of ways stablecoins are more efficient. One of them is simply 24/7 ability to move those. And if you're an active business moving faster and faster, being able to make a payment on a Sunday afternoon sometimes is important. So I think the Genius Act, as an example of unlocking more demand, is an example of, I think, what will happen with the Clarity Act. If we have more clarity and certainty around what are crypto assets, what's a currency, what's a security, what's a commodity, it allows us to use these technologies and for large financial institutions to lean in further than maybe they already have. Usually when I'm doing these, I try not to give a Ripple commercial, but your question belies kind of. We have focused on payments because we think it's very obvious how these technologies can accelerate payment activity in reliable, faster, cheaper ways. I do think I'll leave it at that as a commercial. That's what Ripple does. I mean, we do other things also, but I do think that tokenization is fascinating in that there's so many examples, and I'm sure many represented in this room, where you have T+3 settlement, you have T+1 settlement. Maybe you have something faster than that, or I know examples that are longer than that. But there's so many examples where the settlement of transactions has a ton of friction, and blockchains can remove that friction. Now, there are examples where I hear that something's being tokenized, and it kind of scratched my head like, I don't get it. And again, that's where I feel like you have kind of a technology in search of a problem versus a problem in search of a technology. But look, Larry Fink is an example where BlackRock has leaned in a big way around tokenization. And Larry Fink has gone on record saying he thinks some huge percentage of assets will be tokenized in one way or another for more efficient management, use, storage, transactions. I agree with him. I think that we have to focus kind of vertical by vertical and understand those markets.
A treasurer is the person who decides where a firm cash sits overnight. Weekend money is a tell. Banks' rails run on business days. Money that lands at the weekend is not a better version of the old system. It is a different set of rails. The XRP ledger settles in seconds, 7 days a week. And notice who is asking. That question comes down from the boardroom, so the answer runs through whatever treasury software the finance team already uses. So who moves money? The corporates or the banks? Drop corporates or banks in the comments. Tap the like, subscribe, and notification bell while you're down there. By the close, a number on RLUSD nobody argues with. First, the trillions. Core banking is the master list a bank runs on, the system that knows your balance and every transfer you made. It is the hardest software in the building to touch, because everything else reads from it. Nothing gets wired in there as an experiment. The small print matters more than the headline. That last line is boilerplate, and boilerplate is written by lawyers. Lawyers do not let XRP into a document until it's cleared their review. And nothing about those figures is theoretical. That is real people's savings. In the system, Ripple is now inside. So where does RLUSD actually live? I checked the count myself. A dollar token votes with its supply, and one has already voted. Do the subtraction on those two rows, and the majority is still sitting on our side, not on Ethereum's. And the 1 day column says the gap is widening, not closing. That matters because a network earns its keep on traffic, and a dollar token drags traffic with it. Every business that ends up holding this thing ends up holding the XRP Ledger account, whether it's meant to or not. And in the last 24 hours, the ways in got wider. Axelar lets one network hand value to another. That is Axelar's own claim, not a Ripple announcement. And I'm fencing it deliberately. A routing upgrade is not a bank adopting anything. What it buys a 500 XRP holder is real. One more way into the XRP ledger, and a network stops being niche when the ways in outnumber the reasons to stay away. Now the number I promised you. There is more in the vault than there are tokens outside of it. That is the shape a compliance desk can sign off on, because an outside firm checks the books every month, and New York's financial supervisor holds the charter, so nobody takes Ripple's word for it. None of that is exciting. It is paperwork that decides whether a bank may touch a thing at all. And this one clears it. RLUSD lives on the XRP ledger, and the XRP ledger runs on XRP. Every dollar moving through it is one more reason for the XRP ledger to exist, and one more reason for XRP to be held. The XRP price right now sits at $1.06. Unfortunately, slightly down on the day, and not one page I open need any charts permission. So where does that leave XRP? Conditions first, then the ban. No dates from me. If the Clarity Act gets through the Senate, I'm looking at $3 to $7 per XRP. If corporate money crosses these rails at size, the ban moves from $10 to $30. The doubt is just lost, and your 500 XRP sits where the wiring already runs. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Stack facts, not fear, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.